I woke up on a mattress on the floor. No bed frame, no headboard, just carpet and silence. The room smelled like cardboard and old paint. My daughter stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face blank. She said this was temporary. She said I'd understand soon. I didn't argue. I never did. 3 weeks earlier, the call came on a Tuesday morning. Carla's voice was bright. Too bright. She said she had exciting news. She said Nate was moving back home. I asked if everything was okay. She laughed. Said it was more than okay. She said they were optimizing the house. That word, optimizing. I held the phone and stared at my kitchen wall. The same wall I'd painted yellow 30 years ago. She kept talking. Fast. Confident. She said my bedroom was perfect for video calls and consultations. She said the main bedroom had better natural light. She said they'd made a nice space for me upstairs. I asked where upstairs. She paused. Just half a second. Then she said the small room. Under the eaves. I knew that room. I'd stored Christmas boxes there. And Nate's old skateboard. And a broken lamp. She said there was even a corner ready for my chair. I said nothing. She kept going. Faster now. She said she didn't spend real time there anyway. She said she just slept. That was all. I asked when this would happen. She said the movers were coming Friday. I looked at the calendar. It was Wednesday. 2 days. She said Nate had already moved my mattress upstairs. She said there was a place for me. She said she hoped I'd understand. I told her I understood. I always understood. Friday came fast. The movers arrived at 9. 2 men in gray shirts. They didn't look at me. Carla handed them a list. Pointed at my furniture, my bed, my dresser, my reading chair, everything I'd chosen, everything I'd kept. They carried it out through the front door. Piece by piece, room by room. I stood in the hallway and watched. Nate walked past me twice. He didn't speak. He had boxes in his arms. New sheets. A desk lamp. His things were moving in as mine were moving out. Carla came over. Put her hand on my shoulder. She said it would all make sense soon. She said this was better for everyone. I nodded. The house felt lighter. Emptier. By noon, my bedroom was bare. That afternoon, I climbed the narrow stairs. Each step creaked under my weight. The air grew warmer as I went higher. The door at the top was half open. I pushed it with one hand. The room was smaller than I remembered. Low ceiling, sloped walls, one small window. My mattress sat on the floor. No frame. My laundry basket leaned against the wall. Someone had left my slippers by the door. As if politeness could hide the truth. A plastic crate held a few folded shirts. My quilt lay crumpled on the mattress. I stood there, looking. The lamp was balanced on a cardboard box. The cord stretched toward an outlet near the baseboard. Everything looked temporary, unfinished, like a guest room, or a storage space. I sat down slowly on the mattress. The floor was hard beneath it. I could hear voices downstairs. Carla's laugh. Nate's low murmur. They sounded far away. I lay back, stared at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the corner. Shaped like a hand, or a wing. That night, I couldn't sleep. The room was too warm. The ceiling too close. I kept thinking about my old bed. The one I'd bought with my husband. The one where I'd read every night for 20 years. It was gone now. Sold or donated. I didn't ask which. Downstairs, I heard footsteps. A door closing. The house settling into its new order. I turned onto my side. The mattress shifted under me. I thought about Carla's words. Optimizing. I thought about the movers. The gray shirts. The silence. I thought about Nate. Moving back. Taking my room. And I realized something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't temporary. This was a decision. And I was the one being moved. Like a piece of furniture. Like something in the way. I closed my eyes. The room stayed dark. The night stretched long. And I knew. Tomorrow, I would wake up. And nothing would change. Unless I changed it. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The next morning, paint fumes woke me before the sun. Sharp. Chemical. Crawling through the floorboards. I sat up. My back ached from the thin mattress. The attic room felt smaller in daylight. Voices drifted up from below. Carla's. Then Nate's. They were talking about color palettes and desks. About light. About branding. I stood slowly. Pulled on my robe. The floor was cold under my bare feet. I opened the attic door. Listened. Carla was saying something about perfect angles for the camera. She sounded excited. Energized. I started down the narrow stairs. Each step announced me. Creaked under my weight. The voices stopped. By the time I reached the bottom, they'd moved on. I walked toward my old bedroom. The door stood open. The walls were bright white now. Wet. Glossy. The smell made my eyes water. Carla stood in the center with a paint roller. Hair pulled back. Wearing old jeans and a Stanford t-shirt. She turned when she heard me. Smiled. She said good morning. Said the color was perfect. She said it would photograph beautifully. I looked past her. At the room I'd lived in. The walls I'd woken up to for 3 years. Now blank. Erased. Ready for her brand. Nate appeared behind me. Carrying a desk. He said excuse me. Barely looked at me. I stepped aside. Pressed against the doorframe. He moved past. Set the desk by the window. My window. Where I used to watch the birds. Carla asked if I'd slept well. Her voice was light. Casual. I said I had. It was easier than the truth. She nodded. Went back to painting. She said once everything dried, it would feel completely different. She said I'd see. She said it was all part of the plan. I asked what the plan was. She stopped. Roller in midair. She turned. Looked at me carefully. She said they'd talked about this. She said I'd agreed. I didn't remember agreeing. I remembered being told. She wiped her hands on a rag. Walked closer. She said Nate needed a professional space. A real setup. She said clients expected quality. Expected presentation. She said my room had the best light in the house. I asked where my things were. She blinked. Paused just a moment. She said everything important was already upstairs. She said she'd handled it. Made sure nothing was forgotten. I asked about my dresser. My reading chair. She said they were in storage. She said it was temporary. That word again. I looked at her. At the paint on her hands. At the walls behind her. Already transforming. She said I'd be more comfortable upstairs anyway. She said the small room was cozy. Private. She said she barely spent time in this bedroom herself. Just slept. That was all. So it made sense. Practical sense. I nodded. Said nothing more. By afternoon, the house hummed with activity. Boxes moved. Furniture shifted. Voices overlapped. I stayed upstairs. Out of the way. The attic window looked out over the backyard. Trees. Fence. The neighbor's shed. Everything small from up here. Distant. I could hear drilling. Hammering. Nate was installing something. Shelves maybe. Or mounting brackets. Carla called out instructions. Confident. Clear. She knew exactly what she wanted. And she was getting it. I sat on my mattress, back against the sloped wall. My laundry basket sat in the corner. A plastic crate held my folded clothes, my quilt, my pillow, my slippers, everything I owned, reduced to this. The lamp flickered when I turned it on. Loose connection. Faulty wiring. I made a mental note. Didn't say anything. That evening, Carla came upstairs. She knocked. 2 quick taps. Didn't wait for an answer. Just opened the door. She said dinner was ready. Said she'd made pasta. She looked around the room. Smiled. She said it was actually kind of charming up here. She said she could see me getting cozy. I asked if my chair would fit. She hesitated. Said probably not. She said the ceiling was too low. The space too tight. She said she'd look into getting me something smaller. Something more appropriate for the room. I asked when. She said soon. She said she'd been busy. She said surely I understood. Surely I could be patient. I said I understood. She left. Footsteps retreating down the stairs. I sat there. In the growing dark. The lamp flickered again. Then steadied. Dinner was quiet. We ate at the kitchen table. The 3 of us. Carla talked about her plans. Her business goals. Nate nodded. Agreed. Echoed her words. I ate slowly. Listened. They discussed client calls. Lighting setups. Content calendars. They sounded like business partners. Strategists. Not mother and son. Carla glanced at me once. Asked if the pasta was okay. I said it was fine. She smiled. Went back to her conversation. After dinner, I washed the dishes. Carla and Nate disappeared into the new office. My old bedroom. I could hear their voices. Muffled but animated. Planning. Building. Moving forward. I dried the last plate. Put it away. The kitchen felt empty. Hollow. I climbed back upstairs. That night, lying on the mattress, I stared at the ceiling. The water stain. The low slant of the roof. The narrow window. The flickering lamp. This was my space now. This was what I'd been given. And downstairs, in the room that used to be mine, Carla was building her future. On top of my past. I closed my eyes. The house creaked. Settled. Somewhere below, a door closed. The light under my door disappeared. They'd gone to bed. In their rooms. Their spaces. While I lay here. In the attic. Like something stored away. Something no longer needed. But I was still here. Still awake. Still thinking. And I realized something else. They thought this was finished. They thought I'd accepted it. But acceptance and surrender are not the same thing. I opened my eyes. The ceiling stared back. And I began to plan. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. 3 days passed before I went downstairs during business hours. The attic had become my routine. My boundary. Morning coffee. Woken from the kitchen when they were out. Evening dishes after they'd finished eating. I moved around them. Invisible. But on Wednesday morning, I needed my medication. The bottle sat in the kitchen cabinet. Bottom shelf. I'd forgotten to bring it upstairs the night before. The house was quiet when I descended. Too quiet. Then I heard Carla's voice. Smooth. Professional. She was in the office. On a call. I moved carefully through the hallway. Avoided the creaky boards. The kitchen was empty. Sunlight streamed through the window. I opened the cabinet. Found my pills. Behind me, Carla's voice grew louder. More animated. She was talking about transformation. About before and after. About authenticity and connection. The words floated out through the open office door. I closed the cabinet. Turned to leave. Then I saw it. My reading chair. Through the office doorway. Not in storage. Not donated. Right there. Behind Carla's desk. She sat in it. Leaning back. Laptop balanced on the armrest. My chair. The one my husband bought me. The one I'd read in every night for 20 years. Carla shifted. Crossed her legs. The leather creaked. Familiar sound. Wrong person. She laughed at something the client said. Gestured with her free hand. Relaxed. Comfortable. In my chair. I stood there. Medication bottle gripped tight. She hadn't seen me yet. Too focused on her screen. I backed away. Slowly. Quietly. Made it to the stairs. Climbed up. The attic door closed behind me. I sat on the mattress. Stared at the pills. My hands were shaking. That afternoon, I heard them talking in the kitchen. Their voices drifted up through the heating vent. Clear. Unfiltered. Nate said something about efficiency. About streamlining. Carla agreed. Said everything was falling into place. She said the office was exactly what she'd envisioned. She said clients loved the aesthetic. The professionalism. Nate asked about me. His voice lower. Careful. Carla paused. Then laughed softly. She said I was fine. Said I'd adjusted well. She said I barely came downstairs anyway. She said it worked out perfectly. Nate said nothing. Or maybe he agreed. The conversation moved on. Shifted to meal planning. I lay back on the mattress. The ceiling stared down. Close. Pressing. By evening, I'd made a decision. I waited until dinner. Until we were all together. Carla served chicken. Roasted vegetables. White wine for her and Nate. Water for me. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Then I spoke. Calm. Even. I said I'd noticed my chair in the office. Carla looked up. Fork halfway to her mouth. She said yes. She said she'd meant to mention it. She said it fit perfectly with the space. She said clients commented on it. Called it distinguished. I asked when it would go back to storage. She set down her fork. Wiped her mouth with a napkin. She said she wasn't sure. Said it was working well where it was. She said maybe we could look into getting me something else. Something better suited to the attic. I reminded her it was my chair. She nodded. Said she understood. She said we were all making sacrifices. All adapting. She said she'd given up her bedroom. Her personal space. She said everyone was contributing. Nate looked down at his plate. Said nothing. I asked what I was contributing. Carla's eyes narrowed. Just slightly. She said I had a place to live. Food. Support. She said many people my age weren't so fortunate. She said I should consider the bigger picture. The bigger picture. Her words. Her frame. I asked if the bigger picture included my furniture. She leaned back. Crossed her arms. She said she was building something important. Something real. She said she needed the right environment. The right tools. She said surely I could understand that. Surely. That word. Heavy with expectation. I said I understood. But I didn't agree. After dinner, I didn't wash the dishes. I went upstairs. Closed the door. Sat on the edge of my mattress. The lamp flickered. The room felt smaller. Outside, the sun was setting. Orange light through the window. I thought about my chair. About Carla sitting in it. About her voice. Her confidence. About Nate's silence. About the way they'd divided my life into useful pieces. Kept what served them. Stored the rest. I thought about my husband. Gone 12 years now. What he'd say if he could see this. His chair. His wife. His daughter. He'd always said Carla had ambition. He'd said it like a compliment. But ambition without boundaries becomes something else. It becomes consumption. And I was being consumed. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The attic was too warm. The air too still. I got up, opened the small window. Cool air rushed in, brought the smell of cut grass. Somewhere below, a door opened, then closed. Footsteps on the stairs. Carla's bedroom door. Then silence. The house settled into sleep. Everyone in their proper places. Except me. I stood at the window. Looked out at the dark yard. The trees. The fence. The neighbor's porch light. Everything looked peaceful. Ordered. From up here, you couldn't see the cracks. Couldn't see what was wrong. But I could feel it. In my bones. In my breath. In the empty space where my life used to be. I thought about tomorrow. And the day after. About how long this could continue. About whether anyone would notice if I disappeared completely. Into the attic. Into the silence. Until I was just another stored thing. Another box under the eaves. The window frame was cold under my hands. I gripped it. Held on. Felt the solidness of it. The weight. I was still here. Still standing. Still awake. And something in me, something that had been quiet, was beginning to stir. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Clearer. Something that knew how to wait. How to watch. How to plan. I closed the window. Turned back to the room. The mattress. The crate. The flickering lamp. This was what they'd given me. This was what they thought I'd accept. But they'd made a mistake. They'd left me time. Time to think. Time to see. Time to remember who I used to be. Before I became convenient. Before I became invisible. I lay down. Pulled the quilt up. The ceiling watched. Patient. And I watched back. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. A week went by. Then two. The attic became my entire world. Mornings, I listened to the house wake up below me. Carla's alarm. Water running. Coffee machine gurgling. Her voice on calls by 9. Professional. Polished. Nate moving around. Quiet. Efficient. Their routines flowed smoothly. No friction. Because I wasn't part of them anymore. I came down only when necessary. Meals I took upstairs. Dishes I washed late at night. The bathroom trips were quick. Strategic. Timed between their meetings. Their schedules. I became a ghost in my daughter's house. And nobody seemed to notice. On Thursday of the second week, I found the letter. It was on the kitchen counter. Afternoon light streaming across it. An envelope. Addressed to me. From Golden Horizons Senior Living Community. I picked it up. The paper was heavy. Official. I hadn't ordered any information. Hadn't requested anything. But someone had. The envelope was already open. Slit cleanly at the top. I pulled out the brochure. Glossy. Full color. Smiling elderly faces. Bright common rooms. Chef-prepared meals. A handwritten note was clipped to it. Carla's handwriting. Neat. Efficient. She'd written that she thought I might find this interesting. That it offered community. Activities. Professional care. That we should discuss options. Soon. The word options felt careful. Deliberate. Like she'd chosen it specifically. I folded the brochure. Put it back in the envelope. Set it exactly where I'd found it. My hands were steady. My breathing calm. But something inside me had shifted. That evening, Carla brought it up at dinner. She waited until we'd finished eating. Until Nate had cleared the plates. Then she folded her hands. Leaned forward slightly. She asked if I'd seen the information she left. I said I had. She smiled. Said good. She said she'd been doing research. Looking at options. She said Golden Horizons had excellent reviews. She said they offered different levels of care. Different arrangements. She said some people my age found it liberating. Liberating. Her word, not mine. I asked why she was researching. She paused. Glanced at Nate. He was loading the dishwasher. Didn't turn around. She said she wanted to be proactive. Forward thinking. She said the current situation wasn't sustainable long term. I asked what situation. She gestured vaguely. Around the kitchen. At me. She said the house. The space. The arrangements. She said we were all adapting. But adaptation had limits. She said she needed to focus on her business. Her growth. She said she couldn't do that while managing everything. Managing. As if I were a project. A task. I asked what she wanted me to do. She leaned back. Softened her voice. She said she wasn't asking for anything immediate. She said she just wanted me to think about it. She said we should visit Golden Horizons together. Just look. She said no pressure. No decisions. Just exploration. The words sounded reasonable. Careful. But underneath them, I heard the message. I was becoming inconvenient. And inconvenient things get moved. That night, I looked up Golden Horizons on my phone. The screen's glow lit the attic. Cast shadows on the sloped walls. The website matched the brochure. Bright. Cheerful. I scrolled through the pricing page. Studio apartments started at $3,800 monthly. One bedroom at $4,900. Additional fees for care levels. Activities. Meals. I did the math quickly. Quietly. My Social Security covered maybe half. The rest would come from somewhere else. My savings. My remaining assets. The things I'd kept. Planned to leave. I set the phone down. The attic was dark except for the lamp's weak light. Cold air seeped through the window frame. The house creaked. Settled. Somewhere below, a door closed. The next morning, I found Carla in the office. She was at the desk. Laptop open. Typing rapidly. My chair sat behind her. Empty now. I knocked on the door frame. She looked up. Smiled briefly. She said good morning. Asked if I needed something. I said I'd thought about her suggestion. Her attention sharpened. She stopped typing. I said I'd looked at the pricing. She nodded. Said she knew it seemed expensive. She said we'd figure it out. Said there were ways. I asked what ways. She hesitated. Just a moment. Then she said I had some assets. Some savings. She said we could explore using those. I asked if she'd already looked into my finances. She didn't answer directly. Said she had access. As my daughter. Said she'd wanted to understand the options. Be prepared. The room felt smaller suddenly. Colder. I asked when she'd done this. She waved a hand. Dismissive. She said it didn't matter. Said she was trying to help. She said I should be grateful. Should appreciate the effort. Many adult children wouldn't care this much. Wouldn't research. Wouldn't plan. I stood there, silent. She turned back to her screen. Resumed typing. She said we'd talk more later. After she finished this call. She said I should think seriously about it. She said it would be better for everyone. The conversation was over. Dismissed. I backed out of the doorway. Climbed the stairs. Back in the attic, I sat on the mattress. My phone lay beside me. Dark screen. Silent. I thought about the numbers. The costs. I thought about my savings. Carefully built. Carefully kept. 41 years of teaching. Of planning. Of sacrifice. For what? To pay for my own removal? To fund my daughter's convenience? The lamp flickered. The familiar stutter. I looked around the small room. The sloped ceiling. The cardboard boxes. The plastic crate. This was what concern looked like. This was what love had become. Strategic. Calculated. Efficient. And I realized something. Carla wasn't worried about my well-being. She was worried about her space. Her business. Her plans. I was an obstacle to be managed. A problem to be solved. And Golden Horizons wasn't a suggestion. It was a destination. Already chosen. Already decided. She was just waiting for me to agree. The window rattled in its frame. Wind picking up outside. I stood. Walked over. Looked out. The yard below. The fence. The trees bending. Everything in motion. Everything changing. I pressed my palm against the cold glass. Felt the chill spread through my fingers. I'd been patient. I'd been quiet. I'd tried to understand. To adapt. To accept. But there's a difference between acceptance and surrender. And I wasn't ready to surrender yet. Not my savings. Not my dignity. Not my life. The wind howled. The window shook. And somewhere inside me, something hardened. Something that had been bending. Stopped. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Monday morning, I made a phone call. Not from the attic. Not from the house. I waited until Carla left for her yoga class. Until Nate was in the office with headphones on. Then I walked 3 blocks to the library. The air was cold, sharp against my face. My coat was thin. I hadn't asked for the winter one. It was somewhere. Storage maybe. Or donated. The library was warm. Quiet. Nearly empty. I found a corner desk. Away from the windows. Pulled out my phone. Dialed the number I'd saved. Margaret Anderson. My lawyer for 30 years. She'd handled my will. My husband's estate. Everything. The phone rang twice. Then her voice. Familiar. Steady. She said my name like a question. Surprised. I said I needed to talk. About my accounts. My access. She paused. Asked if everything was all right. I said I wasn't sure. Said I needed to check something. She asked me to hold. Keyboard clicking in the background. Then she came back. Her voice changed. Careful. She said my accounts showed recent activity. Logins from an unfamiliar device. Multiple times. She said someone had been viewing my financial information. Not withdrawing. Not transferring. Just looking. She asked if I'd given anyone permission. I said no. But I knew who it was. Margaret was quiet for a moment. Then she asked if I wanted to change my access settings. I said yes. Immediately. She said she'd handle it. Update the passwords. Add security. She asked if there was anything else. I asked about power of attorney. Whether Carla had it. Margaret said no. Not unless I'd signed something recently. I said I hadn't. She said good. Said to keep it that way. She said if I needed anything. Anything at all. I thanked her. Ended the call. The walk back took longer. My legs felt heavy. My breath came short. But my mind was clear. Sharper than it had been in weeks. Carla had been in my accounts. Looking. Planning. Calculating what I had. What she could use. The house was quiet when I returned. Nate's voice drifted from the office. On a call. I climbed the stairs slowly. One at a time. The attic door closed behind me with a soft click. That afternoon, I started a list. Pen and paper. Old-fashioned. Private. Things I owned. Things I'd earned. Things that were mine. My savings account. 41,700 and change. My pension. Monthly deposit. Direct to my account. My social security. Same. The car. Sold 2 years ago. Money put away. My jewelry. My mother's ring. My wedding band. Small things. But mine. I wrote it all down. Every detail I could remember. Then I folded the paper. Tucked it in my pillowcase. Tuesday, Carla asked me about the visit. She caught me in the kitchen. Late morning. She said she'd scheduled a tour of Golden Horizons. This Friday. 2 o'clock. She said she'd cleared her calendar. Made it a priority. She said I should dress nicely. Make a good impression. I asked why I needed to make an impression. She laughed. Light. Dismissive. She said these places were competitive. Had waiting lists. She said we wanted them to like me. Want me there. The way she said it. Like I was applying for something. Like I needed their approval. I asked what if I didn't want to go. Her smile faded. Just slightly. She said we'd already discussed this. Already agreed. I didn't remember agreeing. She said she'd put down a deposit. Made arrangements. She said it was refundable. But still. She said she'd gone to the trouble. The least I could do was look. That phrase. The least I could do. Like I owed her. Like I was already in debt. I said I'd think about it. She said Friday. 2 o'clock. Don't forget. Then she left. Back to the office. Back to her work. Wednesday, I found the documents. I wasn't looking for them. Not intentionally. I'd come downstairs for water. Late at night. The office door was cracked open. Light off. But papers sat on the desk. Visible in the moonlight. I shouldn't have looked. I knew that. But I did. The top page was a contract. Golden Horizons letterhead. Resident agreement. Terms and conditions. My name at the top. Carla's signature at the bottom. She'd signed as my representative. My decision maker. I flipped through the pages. Scanning quickly. Move-in date. Payment schedule. Care level. Everything decided. Everything planned. Without me. The last page showed the financial breakdown. First month. Last month. Security deposit. Total, $12,400. Due upon acceptance. A sticky note in Carla's handwriting. Blue ink. Confident strokes. It said transfer from mom's savings. Use account ending in 3847. My account. My savings. Already allocated. Already spent. In her mind at least. I put the papers back. Exactly as they were. Walked upstairs. Each step deliberate. Quiet. The attic was dark. Cold. I sat on the mattress. Didn't turn on the lamp. My phone glowed in my hand. Margaret's number ready. But I didn't call. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the darkness. Thinking. Thursday morning, I made my decision. The sun came up slow. Gray light through the window. I'd been awake all night. Mind racing. Planning. By dawn, everything was clear. I wasn't going to Golden Horizons. I wasn't signing anything. I wasn't letting Carla manage my exit. But I couldn't just refuse. Not directly. That would start a fight. Create confrontation. And I'd lose. I always lost with Carla. She had the words. The logic. The control. She'd make me seem unreasonable. Difficult. Confused. She'd say she was trying to help. Trying to do what's best. And everyone would believe her. No. I needed something different. Something she wouldn't expect. Something quiet. Strategic. Final. I needed to disappear before she could dispose of me. The thought came fully formed. Complete. Like it had been waiting. Gathering strength. I stood. Walked to the window. The street below was empty. Dawn quiet. A car passed. Headlights cutting through the gray. Somewhere, people were waking up. starting their days, making choices, living freely. And I could too. I just needed to plan, to prepare, to act. That evening at dinner, I was calm. Carla talked about the tour, about what to expect. She said the facility was beautiful, state of the art. She said I'd love it. She was sure. I nodded, smiled slightly. I said it sounded nice. She looked surprised, pleased. She said she was glad I was being reasonable. She said this was the right choice, the mature choice. She said she'd pick me up tomorrow. 1:30. We'd drive together, make it a mother-daughter outing. I said that sounded fine. And it did, because I wasn't going. Not to Golden Horizons. Not tomorrow. Not ever. I was going somewhere else. Somewhere she couldn't follow. Somewhere she couldn't manage or control or optimize. I finished my dinner, washed my plate, climbed the stairs one last time. Tomorrow, everything would change. But tonight, I needed to rest. To gather my strength. For what came next. The attic was dark. Familiar now. I lay down on the mattress, pulled the quilt up, closed my eyes. And for the first time in weeks, I slept. Deep. Dreamless. Ready. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Friday morning, I woke before dawn. The house was silent. Still asleep. I dressed quietly. Jeans. Sweater. My good coat. The one I'd found in the hall closet 2 days ago. Pushed to the back. Behind Carla's things. My small suitcase sat ready. Packed the night before. Clothes. Medications. Documents. My mother's ring. Everything that mattered. Everything I could carry. The floorboards creaked as I stood. I froze. Listened. Nothing. No movement below. I picked up the suitcase. Light enough. Manageable. Opened the attic door slowly. 1 inch at a time. The stairs stretched down into darkness. Each step had to be perfect. Silent. I knew which boards groaned. Which ones held steady. 41 years of teaching had taught me how to move quietly. How to leave a room without disrupting it. The kitchen was dark when I reached it. Gray pre-dawn light filtered through the window. I set down my suitcase. Looked around one last time. The counter where I'd found the Golden Horizons brochure. The table where we'd eaten in silence. The cabinet that held my medications. This had been my daughter's childhood home once. Before she made it hers completely. Before I became the inconvenient variable. I picked up my suitcase. Walked to the front door. My hand on the knob. Cold metal. Final moment. Behind me, the house breathed. Settled. Slept. I turned the knob. Pulled the door open. Stepped outside into the cold morning air. The door closed behind me with a soft click. The bus stop was 4 blocks away. My suitcase had wheels. They rattled on the sidewalk. Too loud in the quiet street. A dog barked somewhere. A car passed. Headlights sweeping. I kept walking. Steady pace. Don't rush. Don't look back. The bus shelter appeared ahead. Orange light from the street lamp. I sat on the bench. Set my suitcase beside me. My breath came out in white clouds. The cold seeped through my coat. I didn't mind. This cold was freedom. The bus schedule said 6:14. I checked my phone. 6:09. 5 minutes. I thought about Carla. Still asleep. Alarm not yet ringing. She'd wake at 7. Make her coffee. Check her phone. She'd expect me upstairs. In the attic. Waiting. She'd call up at 1:30. Time to leave for the tour. No answer would come. She'd climb the stairs. Find the empty room. The mattress. The lamp. The plastic crate. But no me. The thought brought something close to a smile. The bus arrived on time. Brakes hissing. Doors folding open. The driver nodded. I climbed aboard. Paid with exact change. Coins I'd been saving. Found a seat near the back. Window side. The suitcase fit in the space beside me. The bus pulled away from the curb. Houses passed. Then shops. Then the library. Everything familiar. Everything being left behind. I looked down at my phone. Checked the balance again. My savings account. Still intact. Still mine. Margaret had secured it. Changed all the passwords. Carla couldn't touch it now. The bus turned onto Main Street. Headed toward the highway. I'd booked the motel online. 3 nights. Paid in advance. Non-refundable. The Riverside Inn. 40 miles away. Far enough. Anonymous enough. The kind of place that didn't ask questions. The listing said weekly rates available. Kitchenette. Free Wi-Fi. Everything I needed to think. To plan. To decide what came next. The bus ride took an hour and 12 minutes. I watched the landscape change through the window. Suburbs. Then farmland. Then small towns. Each mile felt like shedding weight. Like removing layers I'd been forced to wear. My phone buzzed once. Then again. I didn't look. Didn't need to. Carla was awake now. She'd found the empty attic. She'd be calling. Texting. Demanding explanations. Later, I'd respond. When I was ready. When I had the words. The distance. The power. But not yet. The motel appeared at 8:40. Single story. Pale blue paint. Parking lot half empty. A neon sign saying vacancy. Flickering slightly. The bus stopped at the corner. I thanked the driver. Stepped down carefully. Suitcase in hand. The air smelled different here. Pine trees. River water. No paint fumes. No tension. No managed optimizations. The motel office was warm. Country music playing softly. A woman behind the desk. 50s maybe. Kind eyes. She smiled. Asked my name. I gave it. Showed my ID. My confirmation number. She handed me a key. Actual metal key. Room 12. She said breakfast was from 7 to 9. Coffee always on. She said if I needed anything, just ask. I thanked her. Meant it. Room 12 was at the end. Green door. Window facing the parking lot. I unlocked it. Stepped inside. Small. Clean. Simple. Double bed. TV. Table and 2 chairs. Tiny kitchenette. Mini fridge. Microwave. Bathroom with a shower. Towels folded neatly. I set my suitcase on the bed. Sat down beside it. The mattress was firm. The room was quiet. Outside, traffic sounds. Distant. Muffled. My phone buzzed again. And again. I pulled it out. Looked at the screen. 7 missed calls from Carla. 11 text messages. The first ones asked where I was. If I was okay. The middle ones demanded I call immediately. The last ones threatened. Said she'd call the police. Said I was being irrational. Irresponsible. Selfish. Said I'd regret this. I read them all. Then I typed one message. Short. Clear. Final. I told her I was safe. I needed space. I'd be in touch. I didn't say when. Didn't say where. Just that. I hit send. Then I turned off the phone. Complete silence. Complete stillness. I unpacked slowly. Hung my clothes in the small closet. Lined up my medications on the bathroom counter. Put my documents in the table drawer. My mother's ring I kept on. Felt its weight. Its presence. When everything was arranged, I sat down again. Looked around the small room. This was mine. This space. This choice. Nobody had assigned it to me. Optimized it for their benefit. I'd chosen it, paid for it, claimed it, for 3 nights at least. Maybe longer, maybe forever. That was up to me now. The window showed gray sky. Parking lot. Distant trees. Nothing beautiful. Nothing special. But it was enough. I thought about Carla. About the tour she'd planned. The future she'd designed. The signature she'd forged. The accounts she'd invaded. About my chair in her office. My room painted white. About the attic. The mattress on the floor. The flickering lamp. About how slowly I'd disappeared. How quietly she'd erased me. And about how I'd let her. Until I hadn't. The clock on the nightstand read 9:15. She'd be frantic now. Calling everyone. Making a scene. Playing the worried daughter. The burdened caretaker. Let her. I lay back on the bed. Closed my eyes. The room was warm. The bed was comfortable. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Deep. Full. Free. Tomorrow, I'd figure out the next step. Call Margaret. Make plans. Build something new. But today, I'd just be here. In this small room. In this quiet place. Where nobody knew me. Nobody controlled me. Where I was just myself. Whoever that was now. Whoever I chose to become. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Saturday morning, I turned my phone back on. The screen lit up. Notifications flooded in. 23 missed calls. 37 text messages. Voicemails. Emails. Even a Facebook message. All from Carla. All demanding. All escalating. I made coffee in the small kitchenette. Instant. Weak. But hot and mine. Sat at the table. Looked out the window. The parking lot was quiet. A few cars. Morning light. I opened the messages. Read them chronologically. The first ones from Friday afternoon were panicked. Where was I? Was I hurt? Please call back. Then angry. How could I do this? How selfish. Then manipulative. She'd cancelled the tour. Lost the deposit. Then threatening. She'd reported me missing. Called hospitals. The last one came at 2 a.m. It said she knew I was fine. Knew this was deliberate. It said I'd embarrassed her. Made her look incompetent. It said when I came back, we'd need to have a serious talk. When, not if. Still assuming control. Still expecting compliance. I sipped my coffee. Let the words settle. Then I opened a new message. Started typing. My response was brief. I told her I wasn't missing. Wasn't in danger. I told her I'd left intentionally. Made my own choice. I told her I wouldn't be returning to her house. Not to the attic. Not to the mattress on the floor. Not to the life she'd optimized for her benefit. I told her I'd be in touch when I was ready. I didn't apologize. Didn't explain further. Just stated facts. Clear. Final. I hit send. Set the phone down. It buzzed immediately. Carla calling. I let it ring. Watched the screen light up. Then darken. She called again. Then again. Each time I let it go to voicemail. After the 5th call, I turned off the phone again. That afternoon, I called Margaret. From the motel phone. Landline. Private. She answered on the 2nd ring. Her voice was warm. Concerned. She asked where I was. If I was safe. I told her I was fine. Told her what had happened. The attic. The brochure. The documents. The planned transfer. She listened without interrupting. Patient. Professional. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she asked what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to stay independent. Stay in control. I said I had my savings. My pension. My social security. I said I could afford my own place. My own life. She said yes. I absolutely could. She said she'd help me look. Help me plan. She asked if Carla had any legal claim to my assets. I said no. No power of attorney. No joint accounts. Margaret said good. Said that made things simpler. She said Carla couldn't force me into anything. She said the choice was mine. Only mine. Those words. Simple. True. The choice was mine. Sunday, I went for a walk. The motel sat near a small downtown. 3 blocks of shops. Coffee shop. Hardware store. Thrift store. Diner. The kind of town people drive through without noticing. But I noticed everything. The way the morning light hit the brick buildings. The smell of fresh bread from the bakery. The sound of church bells. Distant. Gentle. I walked slowly. No schedule. No expectations. An older man nodded as he passed. Good morning. I nodded back. Smiled slightly. Nobody here knew me. Knew my story. Knew my daughter. I was just a woman. Walking. Breathing. Existing. The diner at the corner had a help wanted sign. Server needed. Part-time. Flexible hours. I stood looking at it for a long moment. 41 years of teaching. Then retirement. Then 3 years with Carla. Slowly erased. Could I start again? Work again? Be useful again? The question felt strange. Foreign. But also possible. Monday morning, I called about an apartment. Margaret had sent me a listing. 1 bedroom. Ground floor. Senior housing complex. 20 minutes from the motel. Independent living. No medical requirements. No managers. Just a building. With people my age. Living their lives. The leasing office answered. A woman. Professional. Friendly. She said they had 2 units available. Both move-in ready. She asked if I wanted to schedule a tour. I said yes. Tomorrow if possible. She said tomorrow worked. 10 a.m. She asked my name. I gave it. She didn't know it. Didn't recognize it. Didn't judge it. Just wrote it down. Scheduled the appointment. Said she'd see me then. That afternoon, Carla found me. I don't know how. Maybe she'd tracked my phone somehow. Maybe she'd called motels. Asked questions. Searched. Or maybe Margaret had let something slip. I was in the motel room. Reading. Resting. A knock on the door. Hard. Insistent. I looked through the peephole. Carla stood there. Arms crossed. Face tight. My breath caught. My heart raced. But I didn't open the door. She knocked again. Harder. Called my name. Said she knew I was in there. Said we needed to talk. Face to face. Right now. I stood silent. Still. Barely breathing. She knocked a 3rd time. Then stopped. I heard her voice. Lower. Controlled. She said this was ridiculous. Said I was acting like a child. She said I couldn't just run away. Hide. Avoid her. She said she was my daughter. She deserved respect. The word respect. Heavy. Weaponized. She said she'd given me a home. Taken care of me. She said I owed her. Owed her gratitude. Owed her cooperation. She said I had 5 minutes to open the door. Or she'd call the manager. Make a scene. Force the issue. I looked around the small room. My suitcase. My clothes. My space. Everything I'd built in 3 days. She couldn't take it. Not without my permission. The 5 minutes passed. Silence outside. Then footsteps. Walking away. Car door slamming. Engine starting. Driving off. I exhaled. Long. Slow. My hands were shaking. But I hadn't opened the door. That evening, I wrote Carla a letter. Not email. Not text. Actual paper. Actual pen. The motel had stationery. Blue flowers in the corner. I sat at the table. Wrote carefully. Told her I understood she was upset. Felt betrayed. Told her I understood she'd made plans. Had expectations. But told her those plans weren't mine. Those expectations weren't fair. I wrote that I'd given her 3 years. 3 years of adapting, of accepting, of being managed, of disappearing. I wrote that I wouldn't give more. I wrote that I was finding my own place, my own life, that I'd manage my own finances, my own future, that I'd be in touch occasionally, on my terms, but that our relationship needed new boundaries. Boundaries she'd crossed. Boundaries I was rebuilding. I wrote that I loved her. Still, always, but that love didn't mean surrender. Didn't mean erasure. Didn't mean becoming convenient. I signed it, folded it, found an envelope, addressed it to her house. The house that used to be mine. But I didn't mail it. Not yet. First, I needed tomorrow. Needed to see the apartment. Needed to know what came next. That night, I slept deeply. No interruptions. No knocking. No phone calls. Just silence. Darkness. Rest. The bed was comfortable. The room was warm. Outside, the world continued without me. And that was okay. Better than okay. Tomorrow, I'd tour an apartment. Maybe sign a lease. Maybe start building something new. Something small. Something mine. Something nobody could optimize. Nobody could manage. Nobody could take away. The thought settled over me like a blanket. Warm. Safe. Real. I was 68 years old. And I was just beginning. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Tuesday morning arrived clear and cold. I dressed carefully. My good slacks. Clean sweater. The coat. The mirror showed someone I almost recognized. Not the woman from the attic. Someone else. Someone with purpose. With direction. With choice. The leasing office was in a brick building. 2 stories. Trees out front. Benches. A small garden sleeping for winter. The sign said Riverside Meadows. Independent senior living. I parked in the visitor spot. Sat for a moment. This could be it. This could be home. The thought felt strange. Fragile. But real. The leasing agent's name was Patricia. Mid-40s. Warm smile. Firm handshake. She offered coffee. I accepted. We sat in her office. Windows facing the courtyard. She pulled out a folder. My name on the tab. She said she had 2 units available. Both 1 bedroom. Unit 104 faced the street. More light. Slightly larger. Unit 118 faced the courtyard. Quieter. Ground floor corner. Both were $900 monthly. Utilities included. No deposits for seniors. Just first and last month. $1,800 total to move in. I could afford that. Easily. Patricia asked if I wanted to see them. I said yes. Both please. Unit 104 was bright. Large windows. Afternoon sun streaming through. Living room with space for furniture. Real furniture. Kitchen with full appliances. Cabinets. Counter space. Bedroom with a closet. Actual bed frame already installed. Bathroom with grab bars. Walk-in shower. Good lighting. Patricia pointed out the emergency pull cord. Just in case. She said maintenance was on site. 24 hours. She said community room had activities. Book club. Bingo. Movie nights. But participation was optional. No pressure. No requirements. I walked through slowly. Touched the walls. The counters. Everything was solid. Real. Possible. Unit 118 was quieter. Smaller windows, less light, but more private. The layout similar. Kitchen, living room, bedroom, bath. But this one felt calmer. More contained. The courtyard view showed bare trees. Empty benches. Brick pathways. Patricia said in spring it was beautiful. Flowers. Birds. Residents sitting. She said the corner units got less noise. Less foot traffic. She said some people preferred that. I stood at the window. Looked out. A woman walked past. Silver hair. Blue coat. Small dog. She waved at someone. Smiled. Kept walking. Normal life. Unremarkable. Free. I asked about the lease terms. Patricia said month to month after the first year. She said most residents stayed longer. But the option existed. She said I could decorate however I wanted. Paint even. She said it was my space. My home. Those words again. My space. My home. I chose Unit 118. Signed the papers right there. Wrote the check. $1,800. First and last month. Patricia handed me the keys. 2 copies. Silver metal. She said I could move in this weekend. Friday if I wanted. She said welcome home. I held the keys. Felt their weight. Solid. Real. Mine. That afternoon, I called Margaret. Told her about the apartment. The lease. The keys. She sounded pleased. Said she'd help me arrange movers. Said my furniture was still in storage. Still accessible. My bed. My dresser. My reading chair. Everything Carla had taken could be returned. Everything I'd lost could be reclaimed. Margaret asked about Carla, if I'd heard from her. I said she'd found me at the motel. I hadn't opened the door. Margaret was quiet. Then she spoke carefully. She said Carla had called her office yesterday, asking about my accounts, my assets, my plans. Margaret had told her nothing. Client confidentiality. But Carla had been persistent. Demanding. Threatened legal action. Margaret said there was no legal basis. No case. But Carla might not accept that easily. I said I understood. Said I'd deal with it. Margaret said she'd be there if I needed her. I thanked her. Meant it deeply. Wednesday, I went back to the diner. The one with the help wanted sign. Inside, it smelled like coffee and bacon. Warm. Welcoming. Red vinyl booths. Chrome counter. Checkered floor. A woman behind the counter. 60 maybe. Gray hair. Kind face. She looked up. Smiled. Asked if I wanted a table. I said I was here about the job. She blinked. Surprised. Then her smile widened. She said her name was Donna. She owned the place. She asked if I had experience. I said 41 years teaching. She laughed. Said that might be overqualified. But she liked my honesty. My directness. She asked if I could start Monday. 4 mornings a week. 6 to 11. Breakfast and early lunch rush. 15 an hour. Plus tips. Plus free meals. I said yes. When she needed me. Where she needed me. She shook my hand. Said welcome aboard. Said she had a good feeling about me. Thursday, I mailed the letter to Carla. Walked to the post office. Bought a stamp. Dropped it in the blue box outside. Watched it disappear into the darkness. Whatever happened next would happen. But I'd said what I needed to say. Set the boundaries I needed to set. The rest was up to her. Friday afternoon, I moved into Unit 118. The movers brought my furniture from storage. My bed, my dresser, my reading chair, everything fit perfectly. Like it belonged. Like it had been waiting. I made the bed with my own sheets. My own quilt. hung my clothes in the closet, put my books on the shelf, set my mother's ring in a small dish by the sink. By evening, the apartment felt lived in. Small, simple, but completely mine. I sat in my reading chair, the one Carla had taken, felt the familiar leather, the worn armrests, opened a book, started reading. Outside, the courtyard darkened. Lights came on. Somewhere, someone laughed. A door closed. Life continuing. My phone sat on the table. Turned on now. Available. No calls from Carla. No messages. Maybe she'd read the letter. Maybe she was thinking. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she'd never forgive me. I didn't know. Couldn't control it. All I could control was this. This moment. This choice. This life I was building. Piece by piece. That night, I slept in my own bed. Not on a mattress on the floor. Not in an attic. In my own room. In my own home. The darkness was complete. The silence was full. Outside, the world moved on. Changed. Evolved. But in here, I was still. Steady. Grounded. 68 years old. Starting over. Not because I'd failed. Not because I'd fallen. But because I'd chosen. Because I'd remembered what I'd forgotten. That I was more than convenient. More than manageable. More than someone's mother. Someone's problem. Someone's burden. I was myself. Complete. Whole. Enough. And that was everything. The bed was soft. The room was warm. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and start again. New job. New home. New life. Not perfect. Not easy. Not guaranteed. But mine. All mine. I closed my eyes. Breathed deep. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt it. Not happiness exactly. Not yet. But something better. Something stronger. Peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've survived. You've fought. You've won. Not against someone else. Against the part of yourself that wanted to disappear. That part was quiet now. Gone. And what remained was this. Me. Here. Now. Awake. Alive. Free. The darkness held me gently. And I let it. Because tomorrow would come. With all its challenges. All its possibilities. And I would face it. Not as someone's convenience. But as myself. Finally. Completely. Myself.